Well, hello.
No,
Hello on a blustery Friday. It was nice out. I think we're going to get some interesting weather coming in, but it's great to see you here. Thank you for being here on this Friday. We have a very esteemed and interesting panel discussion for you today. My name is Matt Winslow. I'm a foundation professor, and I'm also the director of FCT&L initiatives, and I'm also a member of the psychology department. I've been here for a million years. Before we get going, I just want to point out that these people have won teaching awards, as we'll learn about. Now my fancy clicker. Maybe my assistant helped me out. There are faculty awards that you can apply for. So there's a bunch of faculty awards. There's also a Society of Foundation Professors has a number of awards. So if you're interested in applying for faculty awards, and I hope you are, and I hope that today will inspire you to do that, then please take a picture of these QR codes, follow those links, and keep those in mind. We hope that you will have it as a goal of yours to win awards and to do work that is worthy of awards. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start out with some introductions, and then I've got a number of questions for the panelists, but then we're definitely going to have time for you to ask questions of the panelists as well. I'm very excited about this. So we're going to go down the line, and I just would like to ask each panelist to introduce themselves and tell us what department you're in. They kind of see it up there already, but also what kinds of classes do you teach typically? Upper division, lower division, online, in person, big, small, that kind of thing. Yep.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here. So I'm Sara Rico Godoy. I'm in the Spanish program in the Languages, Cultures, Anthropology, and Sociology department. I usually teach all levels of Spanish, 100, 200, 300, 400. Sometimes only in person, sometimes a mix. This semester I'm teaching both in-person and online classes, but then next semester I'll be teaching just in person. So I kind of like do both. I also work a lot with the student organizations, Latino Student Association, Spanish Club. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I'm in my 4th year. Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yoshie Nakai. I'm in the psychology department. I won. Should we talk about the awards?
No, just talk about
okay. All right. To ahead. I'm involved in an industrial organizational psychology master's program. So basically, I work with business. That's the end. In terms of courses that I taught, everything. I mean, gen ed to all the levels, undergraduate, online, in person, graduate, in person, online. So I've done that. 500, 700 too. So yeah, I've done that.
I'm Beth Killian, and I am in the School of Nursing. And I was in your shoes just 2 years ago. And when they hired me, I think they really wanted me to take over a online nurse practitioner health assessment course. So for graduate students. But the first year I started, they didn't really know what else to do with me. So I taught in the doctoral program, I taught in the BSN program, but now I've just settled into online graduate and in-person BSN program classes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kirby Easterling, and so I teach over in the College of Business. Specifically, I lead the supply chain program. One of the things I'm most proud of is I'm actually a 3-time EKU grad. I'm from Pike County, our furthest easternmost county. And between being a student here, and now this is my 12th year as a professor, I spent 22 years in the corporate world working for 3 large multinational companies with a couple international assignments. And one of the things I really like to do in addition to teaching my classes is I like to go out and build these relationships with companies in our region that benefit not only our supply chain students, but actually students all across the campus. So it's a great honor to be here with you today.
Great, thank you very much. All right, so our first question is about your teaching award. So I'd like you to tell us about your teaching award. what you won for, and what it meant to you professionally and personally. Kirby, you want to?
I'll start since I've got the microphone. So my award was for the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. And if you look at the write-up per se, what it says is that that scholarship is primarily for someone that heavily uses original research and real-world concepts to blend into very rigorous and dynamic classroom instruction. So that's what I always strive to do. Being a former corporate guy, I try to make my classes very dynamic, much like a real business environment. And to be recognized with that award in particular still means a lot. It's one of the greatest honors. I've been working now, this is, 30 some years for me in total. And to win that award from, such distinguished peers, that highlights what I strive to do every day, really at the very top of my personal accomplishments.
So I won the Innovation in Teaching Award. And so like I mentioned, I took over an online graduate health assessment class, which is challenging because you're not doing a lot face-to-face, and to try to teach students how to do a lot of physical exam techniques remotely is a challenge. So my first year, I incorporated 2 new online platforms. One was called Go React, where students have to record themselves doing a portion of a physical exam, and then faculty gives them time-stamped feedback so that they can fine-tune their assessment skills. Because prior to that, I'd have students make it all the way through the semester and they have to do a 30-minute head-to-toe checkoff at the end and they'd fail. So there was not getting a lot of feedback along the way in the terms of the semester. So that was one platform. I had another assignment where students had to watch a recording of a physical exam encounter, and then they had to write a SOAP note, which is the medical record note that a provider would write. And I felt like that was not very interactive. So I also incorporated an AI-generated platform called Shadow Health, and they actually interviewed an avatar, and they asked questions of the history from the avatar, and the avatar gave them the answers. And then they had to take that information and write their SOAP notes. So I felt like, in our department, our chair is always saying, nominate people for awards, nominate people for awards. And I thought, nobody knows what everybody's doing in their classes. So I had done something relatively new and out of the box. So that's why I decided to go for it. And anyway, that's where I am.
Thank you. I won the Dr. Jerry Pogasnick Graduate Faculty Award. So this is, again, going to the description. That was for the teaching, scholarship, and mentorship of graduate students. So that was the part. But this award meant a lot to me because I was asked by my colleague to apply. Like, hey, Yoshie, you need to apply this. I'm like, okay. But what meant me a lot is that 2 of our alumni wrote the letter for me, and that meant a lot. That meant a lot for me. Made me really smile. They were like, Dr. Nakai, you need this. I was like, okay, well, I didn't know we were going for competition, but they really supported me, and that meant a lot to me. Professionally, again, it's been a struggle balancing the undergraduate and the graduate teaching demands, and then different expectations from 2 programs. And it was great to get the recognition on graduate part. It's, it spends a lot of commitment and time. And then also that I've been getting a lot of support, understanding from my colleagues. And I feel this is not just me, but our program being recognized.
Thank you. I won the Transformative Teaching Award. So that award, the description it's for professors who, through their teaching, transform students' lives. They make them question about themselves, question about belonging and identity. So yeah, when I saw this, I was also pushed to apply from my boss. And I honestly thought it was a reach, of course, imposter syndrome, of course. But I decided to apply, and I think the thing that moved me the most were the two recommendations that I also got from students. They moved me so much, and the things that would say, like, I have a lot of commitment with mental health in my classes and also belonging and community engagement. So both of these people mentioned how through my classes, through, I don't know, a lecture, a movie, an assignment, they got to question their own values and their own sense of belonging, like, where do I belong? What's my community? And or to learn about their own roots. Like I teach the civilizations of Latin American class, and I teach my students from ancient civilizations before the colonizations. And some of them didn't know this. They were like, I didn't know we didn't have Spanish before the colonizers came. And it made them do more research on, you know, their own self, who they are, family values, why do they celebrate the things they celebrate, why do they have the religion they have, and things like that. So I think it was pretty amazing. So professionally, I felt a validation on all the effort and all the time commitment that I put preparing my classes and planning my classes, trying to change every semester what I do depending on the class I have, you know, incorporating all these assignments, but also student hours, taking the time to know them, advise them, hear about their lives, even give them like life advice or college advice. So I think it was very validating, and personally, it felt for sure like an accomplishment. Like I have loved teaching since 2011. I think that's when I started teaching in middle and high school, and it feels like the end, not the end, but like a pivot moment on, okay, so I got this award. Can I do more? Can I actually keep doing this or strive for more things? So I when I applied, like I said, I didn't think I was gonna get it, but it moved me so much. I felt like it was definitely a validation of long hours and grading during the weekend and giving feedback, even when, you know, I didn't have the time to give the feedback, or just sitting there and listen to a student having issues with, you know, struggling with college. So yeah, that's what I felt.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, the next question is, what are 2 or 3 specific teaching practices that you believe were most instrumental in your teaching success?
Well, I can start. We can do this. So I already mentioned, I think, community engagement. I think that one to me is very important. So they have a big component of service learning in the class. So they have to do a few hours outside of the classroom where they serve, you know, either in an event. They help me with do the Spanish table every week. So they organize the activities for that. When we used to have the Latino Heritage Month and the fair, they used to get involved in that as well with like posters or performances. So they have to do an amount of hours. For some students, that is a struggle because they work like 30 plus hours per week. But I always try to find a way for them to get engaged at least in one thing within the classroom. So I think those 2 things matter. And then I do a lot of scaffolded activities that they start like building up from the beginning. So they start, you know, incorporating some grammar that then at the end they have to show through a final project. So my classes rely a lot on team projects. They're also big classes usually, so they do a lot of group work. So at the end of the semester, they have to do a project in groups, usually a presentation. Now, it has changed with my online classes as well. So I do, students say that they don't love this, but this discussion boards, I do think they're important, right? And I tell them you need to talk to your peers and about engage with the content or the reading that you're doing. And they say, oh, I don't learn a lot in online classes, but I think they do because they have to engage with their peers to get all the credit. So that's definitely something I do. So I think a lot of group projects, scaffolded assignments, and community engagement, I think those are the 3 I could mention right now that have really impacted my teaching.
I have more broader strategies in terms of my teaching. First one is awareness of our stakeholders. So in addition to students, when we talk about teaching, we tend to be thinking about students in class. And I think students are very important. But throughout my career here at EKU, I have been thinking about stakeholders, for example, that the organizations who are going to hire our graduates. Also that the family, parents of those students, and that that helped me a lot in kind of translating into my teaching that the who is this like excellence for. So I can make my class so easy that the students can go through fine, but am I doing good at the end? So there are certain things that I kind of think about making decision. Okay, why am I being difficult here? It's not doing anything good. But there's certain things that I hold their students accountable or aiming for specific outcomes, thinking about their future employers, for example. So just kind of thinking about that outside stakeholder has been my strategy. And then also that I also think about where my class is in the big picture. So I cannot accomplish everything just in one class. And there's no way I can just, why I would love to, but it's impossible. So I have to coordinate that effort with my colleagues. And when is this skill introduced? Am I reinforcing it? Or if so, I want to know what was taught so I can say, hey, you learned this in this class, and reinforce it. Or if they didn't learn it, I need to make sure that they get the steps to get the basic knowledge instead of like, hey, you should know this. So that's something to think about, that I know the limitation of my class. I cannot do everything. So if not, try to coordinate and make more as a group effort at the program level.
Well, do not come with many years of experience in education. I worked in the clinical practice for over 30 years. So when I came here 2 years ago, I didn't know how to teach. So I had taught graduate students in the clinic, and I had been teaching as an online facilitator here. But so it was very different for me to stand up in front of a class and know how to do that. So my first year, I attended as many FCT&L webinars, workshops, anything I could. I also sat in on some colleagues and watched them and how they present material. And I kind of just learned it that way. But some things that I tend to, that are big for me, I feel like student engagement is huge. So all of my lectures, I have review questions at the end. I interject questions throughout class. For one, it keeps them awake, keeps them on their toes. But I try to reinforce throughout the lecture to make sure they're understanding. And then my colleagues think I'm weird, but at the beginning of every semester, at least my in-person students, I print off the roster and I have their picture. So I intentionally really try to learn every single student's name. And sometimes the classes are 100 students, but by the end of the semester, I know everyone. And I'll make notes on that roster as to where they're sitting so I can remember. And then I see them in the hall later and I can call them by name. And that's been big for me. And I feel like students are very receptive to that. They feel like they have a connection. But outside of that, I'm still learning. I'm still developing. What works in the undergrad program is totally different than the master's program. I'll be starting the semester and I realize students aren't getting something. And all that course is already laid out. The lectures are laid out in the online program, but I might hop on and do a 5-minute Zoom and re-explain things so they can understand it. So a lot of it is just pivot and fix things as you go. And like I said, I'm still learning.
So I'm curious, how many of you, this book came out maybe 15 or 20 years ago, Jim Collins' Good to Great. Anybody read that? I knew you would have read it. So, really sort of a pivotal point for me came about 3 years ago. Not that my teaching is great now, but, I think it was pretty good. And
Interactions
were good, students, the peer review were good. But
regulations
really,
provide no explanation
my
of the words
DNA,
readily ascertained.
I strive for excellence. That's something that our president, right? President McFadden talks about all the time. And that applies to teachers too, right? It's not just for students, it's for everybody to aspire for excellence. And that's something that I did in my corporate life. Anyway, about 3 years ago, it really dawned on me that, it was good, but it could be better. And so I started thinking about a new kind of a mindset or teaching style that I really wanted to approach critical thinking from sort of a fresh perspective. So there's a lot of critical thinking models out there, but so in the business school, I worked with Dr. Laura Barthel. Some of you know Dr. Barthel. She's a good friend of mine. And so collectively, we came up with what we call the 3 C's of critical thinking. So in the business school, of course, we're heavily, looking at numbers. So the first C, which is sort of where, my teaching resided at the time, was, taking a set of data and performing some kind of calculation. That's the first C. And if you look at a lot of the textbooks, that's the questions at the end of the chapters, that's sort of where it ends there too. But what Laura Barthel and I came up with is that, well, we needed a second and a third C. And that second C was to convey or to interpret, what does this result we just calculated, what does that mean? And I'll give you a good example. If we were to say, our enrollment is 16,000, that's lacking context, isn't it? That's not something we can necessarily say is good or bad unless we know, well, what was the goal for this year? And what was our enrollment last year and 5 years ago? And what do we project it to be, next year or 5 years out? So that's the clarifying and conveying is, well, what is this variable that we just calculated? Why is it important? So that has really elevated my classes. And then the third C is communicate, right? We got to put together some kind of a plan for how do we make this thing, whatever this thing is, whether it's enrollment or whatever, how do we drive it to whatever the goal or wherever we want to be at some point in the future. So that 3 C's model now in all of my classes, I only teach juniors and seniors in grad school, MBA students. But that's something now, every exercise that we go through, we apply that 3 C's model. So they know that they're going to have to do the calculation, but they know that that's not where we're stopping. We're now going to interpret, we're going to clarify, we're going to convey, we're going to add some context as to why this is important. And again, the third one is we're going to communicate a plan to make it better. And so I've asked the folks here that arranged this today, Dr. Winslow and Dr. Carpenter and others. I actually took that concept and I turned it into a research paper, right? Let no good idea go wasted. So I turned that into a research paper back in early 2024. That seems like forever ago. And the title of it is Sizing Production for a Boutique Soda Pop Manufacturer. Right? So L8 over in Winchester as an example. And the only reason I mentioned that is that's the first time that the 3 C's model was introduced in a published journal. And then also Dean Blair was so impressed with that paper that that's what he used when he nominated me for the award. So it sort of all came together for me. So anyway, they're going to include that research paper. It's 5 or 6 pages long. It includes a case study. You might say, well, I'm not in business. It doesn't matter because it's highly generalizable, right? You can apply that 3 C's concept to any classroom.
Great, thank you. So the next question is about what resources you've called upon that have helped you become an excellent teacher. So these resources might be institutional, departmental, interpersonal. What or who have helped you become this excellent teacher?
Well, so one of the things that's really helped me, and this was about again, about year 2 or 3 of the tenure track process. I highly suggest finding a really good mentor. Some of you may know Dr. Kristen Wilson. So she's been my mentor for the last 5 or 6 years. And from that, she not only guided me through the tenure process and I give her the credit. I don't say this boastfully at all, but for teaching and service and scholarship, I was able to get a category 1 in all 3. And that was really my goal, right? Is to be, to achieve excellence, not in 1 or 2, but rather all 3. So I think, finding a great mentor is very important. And then often that mentor turns into, a teaching buddy or a research buddy. And, because of the relationship I built with her, she's come into my classroom many times above and beyond the mandatory once a semester that, just giving feedback. And, normally I think, this may be pretty consistent around I think, for tenure track, an assistant professor, it's, 1 peer review per semester. But that's the minimum, right? It doesn't mean you can't have more than that. There's plenty of times that I often, have had 4 or 5 come into the classroom, obviously at different times, different courses. But, the gift of feedback is really important.
So I briefly mentioned this earlier, but so I did do a lot of outside things, not just here at the university, but I took advantage of some conferences and stuff to learn some tools. I work in a team of 4 in our graduate program. So one of us has been here 15 years. The rest of them are relatively new. So we bounce a lot of ideas off of each other. And we learn what works for one person, and then we may try to incorporate that in our class. And then we have some great faculty in our department, and they've just been great. I do have a mentor that kind of, she teaches mostly in the doctoral program, but she kind of took me under her wing and kind of explained the whole tenure thing to me and how things worked, and that was very helpful as well.
I would say 3 resources within EKU. First is my colleagues. When I had any question, any teaching, even little things like what's on this blackboard, I just go, somebody's like, hey, can you help me? Do you know this? And that was great. I mean, I always had that support. But when our program transitioned to fully online in 2017, we worked closely with IDC. The instructional designers that I worked with, they were the experts on the online teaching. I was not. I was a content expert, but I was not online instructor. Like, I was completely new. So I didn't pretend like I knew what I was doing. I asked them what works. And they could tell me how about this? How about this idea? And that was excellent. I like to rely on experts on the area. I mean, I can learn, of course, but of course that we have experts there who have been doing this for a while, and that they have great insights. And I'm glad that I listened to them, didn't get stubborn, and that incorporated their feedback into my teaching design early on. The final point is scholarship of teaching. And I was curious about scholarship of teaching, and we were very fortunate, thanks to Dr. Winslow, that in our department, scholarship of teaching has been recognized as a part of the teaching, part of scholarship in our PNT. So it has been very active part in the department. And I went to the conferences, I went to, learn about different techniques. Some works and some don't. And so for example, tilt worked really well for me. It resonated very well with my style and what I wanted to achieve at the end of my teaching. That worked well. Some of the others I did, and I'm like, I don't think so. This doesn't work. So just because my colleagues were doing, I didn't need to do that. I tried out that. No, that's not working. There are so many different ideas out there, and I know that this trial and error part could be frustrating, but once you find a method that works for you, it very helps. I think that very helps you being more confident and streamline your teaching and other areas too. So.
For me, I'll mention a few too. Definitely the FCT&L, right? Like, I need to mention this space. I need to give a shout out to a space, because I think since the new faculty symposium, when I did in, my first year, all those workshops really, really helped me even with like small things that I thought I had in control, like how to write objectives, you know. I remember that one. I remember a presentation about transparency in learning, how to be transparent in your instructions. Because I wasn't being, like, to be honest, but now I am. Now I always think about, will the students understand this? Like they're 5, you know, will they understand this very well? So, and I learned all of that in workshops on the, you know, the TLIs. Also, professional learning communities have been great because I get to see and I get to know what my colleagues are doing. We did one about relationship-rich education last year, and it was so great. Like, it was so helpful to for me to reflect on my own teaching. Is it really relationship based? And it is, right? Like, I was already doing a lot of community engagement, but there were still some things that I wasn't considering, like, you know, food security for students, like problems of identity and belonging. So I really appreciate having been part of that community. And then definitely El Centro, you know, we're downstairs if you've been there. El Centro has given me not just a community, but also a space where I can meet the students, where I can hold workshops, when I can do events for my the students organizations I work with. It has provided me with a bunch of resources now. And it's been growing, so it's been nice to see it grow. Definitely my colleagues are one of the best resources. They have observed my classes. They have given me the feedback like Yoshie mentioned. And it's been great. Like, they were my mentors for sure. I remember having one mentor assigned at the beginning, but I think all of them mentored me that first and second year when it was hard. It was a struggle to understand what was I supposed to bring here to the table. Like, I had no idea what was I supposed to bring to the table. I didn't know how to teach this student population because it is so different from other student populations I have encountered. But I'm glad I'm getting there. I'm still learning. And lastly, I will say collaboration with other faculty. I think that has helped me a lot to rely on them as well, because I can focus on my teaching, but if I'm working with a group, we can publish a paper like we just did for the pedagogical proceedings that's going to come out. That came out from an event that we collaborated with other international faculty, and I can't believe that it can like develop and become that. But definitely people are a great resource here. Other faculty, it doesn't matter if they're not from your same program. Like, I have worked with people in the English program, in like the education department. So that has been great. And of course, students, I think students are also a resource that's worth mentioning for me, because they're the ones who have taught me how to improve my teaching. Like, every day that I sit with them, that they give me feedback on those student and those teaching evaluations that sometimes are hard to read. They are hard to read sometimes. They have helped me reflect on my own. So they're a great resource that you can count on every day, every year. So yeah, thank you.
Great, that's awesome. Well, I want to have enough time for your questions. So we're going to just have one more question for the panel, then we're going to open it up. So get your questions ready. And this is kind of a fun one, I think. So if you could speak to your first year teaching self, what advice would you give that person that would help that person get to the teaching excellence that you achieve now even easier?
That is a hard one. I think the first thing I when I saw that question, the first thing that came to mind is just be authentic, like your authentic self. You do not need to teach the same way your peers do or fit a model in your department. Just because someone does something doesn't mean you have to do it. And they can tell you to do it, and it's a good advice, but it's on you deciding whether to take that or not. And I think I struggled a lot my first 2 years trying to replicate what was being done and losing my own teaching philosophy, actually. But when I realized that that was happening, I was like, no, I mean, I still want to be focused on community engagement, service learning for students to serve, you know, to use cultural diversity to serve others. Yes, it is important to cover the content of the class, but in reality, you might not go through all those 10 chapters or 5 chapters. Honestly, soft skills really matter. And I was not giving the soft skills, the human skills, like I think the importance that I think they have personally. So after I reflected on myself, I started incorporating those more. How to work in a group is something that people struggle a lot. or how to be kind, or asking them how they're doing at the beginning of every class, even if they're sad, in Spanish. They still doing it in Spanish. So definitely authenticity. I think that's something I will tell myself. Just be you. Just do the things you're still doing. Of course, you learn the culture of EKU, right? It is different. It's a different student population, but just do what you're already doing. Don't think you're not capable of changing lives, even if it's just one out of 100 students that you have is still making an impact.
That's a tough question. I mean, that is a tough question. I would say the first thing is be confident on what you're doing. And again, there is trial and error. Some of the things that may not work, and you just need to accept it, look into why that happened, and then move on. So I think that's probably just keeping your healthy level of confidence, keep going, right? And then also that it's just me, and if I'm giving advice to me many years ago, I would say keep the big picture. That's where I got to. I tend to focus on details. I love details. But I didn't need to do the rabbit holing on every single detail in my first year and the second year. I mean, I probably could have done something different when I was doing that. So I would probably say, hey, just disengage when you don't need to engage in those details, get the big picture where I'm at, be confident, and move forward. And I think that's what I would tell myself.
Well, me not coming from an education background, I sat here for the first 6 months and I had no idea what pedagogy meant. I mean, that term was used all the time. I didn't know what everybody was talking about. So part of it is just learning as you go. And, I was given all brand new classes. So I sort of learned to make them my own, not try to do it the way the previous professor had done it. Again, you don't want to try to compete with somebody else. You just got to do what's comfortable for you and make what you've got your own. And again, I just still learn a lot from other people that I work with. And yeah, it's definitely a work in progress.
Well, I think the advice that I would, go back and give myself, this is something that I did not do, and that is don't be afraid to ask for help. So I also, didn't come from an education background. As I mentioned, I spent 22 years in industry. And so I came with sort of the mindset that, I didn't want to ask for help, that, I thought that might be, a sign of weakness or something like that. And that first year or two was really much harder than it needed to be. I think back, having, graduated 35 years ago, I mean, there was no such thing as, an LMS system. When they first started talking about Blackboard, I'm like, where's the chalk? Right. I mean, but, I was, there was no such thing as a discussion board. These were all things that, were totally Greek to me. And so I made that first year or two harder than it needed to be. And, even though I went to school here, I didn't know any of the professors. That was a long time ago. Yes, I was familiar with the campus, but, anybody that I had any association with was long gone. But not only, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, not only is I think EKU faculty world-class, instructors and researchers, I think they're world-class people. Everybody that I've encountered here at EKU in the last, 12 years is willing to help. And, and let that be true for me as well. If, I don't think there's any business people in here. There's not. But, if I could help any of you all, some of you all may be coming from a non-academic career. Don't be afraid to ask, right? This is a special place to work, honestly. And I don't even think of it as work, but a lot of wonderful faculty that are, definitely willing to help and extend, a hand up.
Okay, well, so you probably know what these things are, right? These are catch boxes. So it's a microphone in here. But they're also soft and plushy, and they're called catch boxes because you're supposed to catch them. So who's got a question that I can throw the catch box to?
Thank you. Thank you for your introductions, presentations. So I'm a professor at Department of Government, and I have a specific question about something that I'm struggling with. So for the first time this year, I'm teaching in an auditorium, a very large class. And my struggle is that, so I have some strategies to increase participation, such as roll call participation. And meanwhile, I also take occasional attendance because I cannot do it every time because it's taking too much time. But my struggle is about voluntary participation in such large classes. I'm not having that problem that much in smaller classes, but in that auditorium, very large class, I'm having that. So my question is if you have any strategies based on your experiences in such like teaching in large classes.
So I generally teach, again, juniors and seniors with about a cap of 40. So I'll defer to one of these great colleagues to.
Well, like I mentioned, that's big for me. And there's been some classes that have been, 100+ students. So I have learned to lay that out in day one. So when I'm talking about the syllabus, I'm talking about the course, I lay that out in day one so they know every day from there on, they're going to be expected to participate. So like I said, I will intentionally put some questions into my lecture just to start that engagement. But if you start it on day one, they get used to it. And then throughout the whole semester, I've not had issues. Now, every group is a little different. This group I have this semester, they're just quieter, but I still lay it out in day one. They know this is the expectation. And sometimes I'll just, if they're not paying attention, I'll have them stand up and stretch. Okay, let's get back to it. And, but I usually have to lay it out in day one because if you try to do it halfway through, you're not going to get anywhere.
I have not taught that auditorium in person, that size, that was only online, but if possible, maybe moving students, assign them to move to different places. Sometimes the students get too comfy in one spot, assign them like, okay, this like group, move here, move here, move here, within even the auditorium for like every 4 weeks. Sometimes that neighbors change and they change up. So that's something I would try.
I'm not a panelist, but I have taught in the Grice Auditorium, which is a big, huge room over there with 150 people. And my strategy was to get the students to talk to each other. If I ask a question of the whole class, 1 or 2 people can speak, but if I give them something to do where they're talking in small groups, then everybody's talking. So when I was teaching in that terrible, the Grice Auditorium, if you've ever been in there, it is not a great place. It's like a movie theater from 1975. Terrible chairs, terrible acoustics, drab, old white guy painting on the wall. But I was still able to get students to talk to each other. I had them do the small groups, and I did the same thing. I started out first day. This is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it every day, and that made a big difference. And it changed what I did in my class a lot because half the time was them working in small groups. Half of my class time was at least. So that's a big change for me. It was a big change for me, but my class was loud and raucous at times, and that was great. I really liked that. Yeah, David.
So a technique that I use, I have classes maybe 50 or 60. I have permanent teams, but I'll also walk in and say 1, 2, 3, 4, break them down into 4 groups like that, give them a problem to solve. And then what I found in the class is I have really strong people, and I've turned them into mentors. And I talked to Dr. Carpenter, those mentors are not allowed to contribute anymore. Then they're going to come over here and get skilled and trained on how to become mentors professionally. And we'll give them a certificate of completion and I'll put it on their resume. And then when I go through and I say, okay, you're going to be the speakers, I'm going to select for you to do the report outs. I actually have a rubric for them. Okay, contribution, to make sure everyone talk with the team. And once you, in the first grade is, the first score is not for grade, but it's scored. Once you max it out, then you move over into mentor. Now you're helping. If you don't, I'll tell you, hey, you got 25 out of 30, but in order to get the other 5, here's exactly what to do. They've got the rubric right up front, and then I'll circle back in, and it's worked out really well. So I'll share that with you as a technique that I've used.
I like that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Who's got another question? Who's got our next question? Rusty's got the catch.
Whoever I
box.
throw the catch box to.
Yeah. It's easy to catch, I promise.
Flush.
Yeah.
I have another question. Textbooks. Some of these textbooks, the authors cram as much information as they possibly can. There's no flow, there's no logic to it. It's just, there's no way you can teach off of it. Some of them seem to be pretty good. Have you encountered those kinds of situations where I ordered the textbook and I get it and it's like, oh my gosh, there's very little here. Is there any one publisher that seems to work better than others? That's a real help needed for me, is how to find the right textbook.
So I'm in language teaching, so it might be different, but I didn't have that experience once in my 360 class. I ordered a book that I thought it was great, and then it came and it was awful. It was overwhelming. Students were struggling. So I just decided to use my own materials. I have done that with a lot of my upper level classes, but it takes me time to sit down and look for articles, open educational resources. I think they're called OERs. I think that's the acronym. Because I mean, in our 100 and 200 classes, it's easy. We have an standardized textbook, which is language, and it's not really cramped. We only do like 4 chapters per semester, so it's actually pretty decent. But the upper level classes are the ones where I think will struggle. I think it's about just trying different books, but it is hard when you do it too late, because I think I did it too late. I just like look over quickly and I thought, oh, this is great. And I think I used it before for a 300 level class back in the UTK, but then for this class, it didn't really work. For this specific group, it wasn't working. So I kind of stopped using it like half the semester, and I started giving them worksheets that would find in like free resources pages, or I just came up with my own activities for like, because that class is a grammar teaching class. So it's been a trial and error, I would say, but open educational resources are a thing that I would do. I just put it on my Canvas, Blackboard, Canvas. I just make them available for them. I sometimes print out some things and give it to them, but they're most available in Canvas. I don't really use textbooks not at least for my upper level division. It does take time, like I said, to sit down and look for all of those readings for the 16 weeks, but at the end, it has worked for me pretty well.
Well, I know when I was in college, I read every textbook word for word. Nowadays, I find students don't even read the textbooks, which is extremely frustrating. So my lectures, pretty much all my test content comes from my lectures, because I know they're not going to read the textbooks. Now, a lot of the textbooks have digital content. This semester, so I teach pathophysiology in the undergraduate program. I started assigning some of the digital content to them. It doesn't count for a grade, but they have to do it. So at least I know they're interacting. They don't want to read, but they can learn from watching a recording, and they can answer questions that are asked of them after they're given some content. So that was really eye-opening once I started teaching. But to answer your question about choosing textbooks, I know we use 3 different book companies where most of our textbooks come from, and I will reach out to the rep 6 months before my next class and say, I want to try out a new book. Could you send me a copy? And they'll send you a desk copy, and then they'll give you like a temporary access to the digital resources, so you can go through and decide if this is a textbook I want to use or not. So that's been very helpful.
Okay, thank you.
I think you've got a new best friend,
Yeah, absolutely.
the book rips.
Give you the copies for free.
And they are happy to, because they want your business.
I have reached out to one company and they've said, no, you'd have to buy it.
Oh my, find a different one. There's plenty out there. They want your business.
About them, like you said, and
Okay.
they're pretty good.
I have not called them. Okay, thank you.
Sungage also.
Pardon me?
Sungage.
Sungage?
These dams that are too, I think they're really good about that too, giving like free copies.
And this is not about choosing a book, this is more about what to do once you have a book, but if you don't know about perusal, you should learn. Perusal is, that's to nodding people, and if you want to learn about perusal, I'm a huge advocate. It's a way that students read textbooks online, and then they have, it's like social media and the textbook mashed together. The student engagement goes way up. Because they can be graded on their interactions with the book on perusal, but they also get a lot of peer collaboration on perusal. It's like reading the book with a classmate at the same time. It's magic.
We get perusal for free.
Perusal doesn't, you can't do it for free. They ask for some money if you can, but you can do it for free too. We have time for one more question that I know.
Yes,
Dr. Oh, good, yes.
yeah. So thank you for giving insights about this. So I have one question regarding PPT's presentations. As it comes through this, like students are not reading textbooks and all. While presenting, if you are presenting with short content on that, because we have read the books, and that's why we know a little bit more about that. And so we don't want to be put a lot of content on the PPTs. So we, over the period of time, we know, so that's why we just put the bullet points. So while submitting as a resource or while teaching, so how to deal with this? Shall we go with the just bulleted points? Because at the end, students are not going to be understand that simple bullet points, small, 1 line, 2 line, or 1 word, 2 words, things. So how to deal with these situations?
Who's got an answer?
Yes. Yeah.
So, Patho is kind of a complicated content. So I do a lot of, like the student slides have a lot of blanks. So for one, they have to fill in as they go, as I'm giving them the content. For one, that keeps them awake and engaged. But to some degree, there are some, I have large bullet points with some smaller bullet points underneath. I try not to complicate the slides a whole lot. I try to incorporate pictures when it's helpful. Especially you're talking about internal body things. If they can't see it, they don't understand what you're talking about. So a lot of my slides have a lot of pictures in them as well.
Yeah.
But they've got to take notes. I mean, students that don't come, they miss a lot if they're not in class.
Yes.
So, because there's no way I can have everything they need to know on their slides. And if students are just studying for the exam by memorizing what's on the slide, they're not going to make it.
Yeah, so that's the problem, because they are not reading, because we came all the way from textbook to the like just content oriented only. This is related to the exam, and then from exam oriented we're just sticking to the slides. So yeah, so
My textbook, and I get it. I know students, and I tell them first day, I said, you're going to do the best in the class if you read along and understand the content. But if you do not have time, like at the halfway through each chapter, there's chapter of the book, there's like a summary section. I'll tell them, if nothing else, read the summary. It is packed full of information that will help supplement the lecture.
I assign the reading. Then with Canvas, there's a different categories, right? So I don't do a multiple choice test. It's an open book test. They can take it as many times as they want. And there's different categories. And so maybe I'm doing a chapter on airline marketing, and I'll say, and there's another chapter on airline finance. I'll have 2 columns in Canvas, and I'll put different little drag and drops, and they have to drag and drop them in the right ones. And then what I do, kind of what you're talking about, I have the PowerPoint presentation, and I tell them during class, there's going to be a closed book test. You can use the PowerPoint, it's open PowerPoint, but it will not have the notes. The things that are talked about in class, about 20% of this test will not be in the initial handout. You have to take the notes. And then when you go to take your test, if those notes aren't there, there's a consequence. And that seems to happen and makes them pay attention in class. Yes.
Well, thank you. So, thank you again for your time. Join me in thanking our panelists for their time and expertise. If you have questions for us, many of us will stick around maybe, but if we can't do it now, email us, contact us. We're all we're colleagues, and so we want to help as much as we possibly can. So reach out to us.